Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs and have some fun.
Get your popcorn ready.
I'm here so I won't get fined.
It's about I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
No. What?
Get your big butt out of here.
Welcome into the Fantasy Guides podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher, and I am joined today by the one and the only Jacob Rhodes, Fantasy Guides contributor, and no one else, because everyone else hates us. Jacob, why does everyone hate us?
Well, Steve is at Disney, and Jesse is just super busy with kid stuff, so we get to play while they're away, and we'll have fun tonight.
Yeah, for those who haven't tuned into some of the other podcasts, maybe Steven managed to book himself a trip to Disneyland. I think he did it like a month ago. Didn't realize there's 1 month in April that a man who works full-time in football should not miss. He missed the 1 week, and it is draft week. And for that, Steven, we thank you. Now we get to make fun of you. And so Jacob and I, if you guys see stuff popping out and it's visuals and graphics and it's written stuff, it's probably from us.
Yep. We've got them covered this week.
Exactly. We'll get lots of work in. You'll hear lots from us. Steve always gives his credit when he can. And so you'll see our names probably everywhere. So good times ahead, especially with the NFL draft coming up. And speaking of drafts, make sure you're heading on over to Underdog where you can draft for yourself. Draft right now before the NFL draft happens and get some crazy values. I see those running backs going like 200th off the board, like the rookies who we're going to talk about today will probably slide up in like the 3rd, 4th round if they get the right landing spot. So get yourself on Underdog. Use the promo code GUIDES, GUIDES, where they will match your deposit up to $100 on Underdog. Again, that's GUIDES, GUIDES. And just a reminder, like us, follow, subscribe, do what the cool kids are doing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, what have you. Jacob, you got any fun festivities planned? Are you just going to sit there in the lurking chair to watch this NFL draft?
Oh, yeah. I got a buddy coming over. We're going to sit on the couch and just watch the whole thing and take it in and enjoy what little piece of football we get this time of year.
I've started a tradition with my friends on accident because last year I had them all over because they wanted to see my live reaction to the Colts pick at number 4 last year because they knew darn good and well I was not a Levis guy, and they were ready to see me crying on the floor. And so I invited them all over so they could see that. Now I've got a yearly tradition of cooking Philly cheesesteaks and watching football with my friends in April, which it just doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, start a draft tradition. If you don't have one, now's a great year to do it.
It's phenomenal. Doesn't get better. But yeah, speaking of which, the NFL draft is on Thursday, and we just thought it'd be fun to get in, talk about landing spots so that when the draft happens, we're not like overreacting to certain landing spots and not underreacting to certain landing spots. We're going to have a ton of time to dig through these landing spots. You're going to hear it all summer, and this will kind of get you a jump ahead on all of this because Jacob and I are going to look into our crystal ball and figure out where they're going and how we should appropriately react. So we're going to go quarterbacks, then running backs, and then wide receivers. For some of the top guys like quarterbacks, there's like 6 spots they could possibly go to, which is still a lot, which is awesome.
Yep.
So we'll go ahead and break those guys down in terms of just those landing spots. When we get to like running backs, anything goes. Like there's like 8 guys that could go anywhere. We'll talk about what will boost draft spots and what won't, and kind of the same with wide receivers. So let's dive right into it with the quarterback position. Alrighty, so looking at the top of the draft, 1 off the board, no surprise, that's going to be Caleb Williams.
Yep.
Jacob, kind of catching you off guard with this, didn't plan to start with it, but just what do you think of Caleb Williams on the Chicago Bears? Good spot, bad spot? We haven't talked about it because it's just going to happen. We haven't had to debate it.
It's just going to happen. So I don't think it's not a bad spot. I hope that organization doesn't do them wrong, but so far they've set the team up to where a young quarterback, especially a good and talented one like Caleb Williams, is going to be able to succeed. There's 2 really good outside weapons for him. There's a really good pass catching running back, and there's a lot of rumors that they might draft another receiver in this draft. So that offense is set up really well. He's really talented. He's deserving of the number 1 pick. He's set up for success, and he will have no excuses in his rookie year. So what could go wrong?
Chicago, your savior is here. He's going to be amazing. Don't doubt it. And if he's not, dude, think about how many memes we're going to get to make about Chicago and quarterbacks.
No, yeah. Especially if Fields is good in Pittsburgh. Oh, It'll be brutal.
I didn't even think about that side of it. Oh my god! And that's so both those franchises. The
Yeah.
Steelers are gonna get the broken toy, and the Chicago Bears get the shiny new thing, and the Steelers will totally come out on top.
Mhm.
That'll be phenomenal. Anyway, yeah, I agree. Caleb Williams, absolutely, it's a great spot as far as number 1 overall picks go.
Yeah.
That's a nice spot. O-line's fine. Weapons surrounding him, and
Mhm.
for fantasy, that defense actually was better than I would have thought. I think it might have
Yeah.
overperformed a little bit last year, but it looks like they're going to invest heavily into the offense. So yeah, we'll take that even for fantasy. Diving into these other quarterbacks and where they might land, I have gotten 6 spots, young Mr. Rhodes, and there's no other places for these next tier quarterbacks. That'd be Jaden Daniels,
Yep.
May, or JJ McCarthy to go.
Mhm.
I got them marked, and I believe you probably don't have many disagreements with it based on mock drafts. They're either going to land on the Commanders, the Patriots, the Vikings, the New York Giants, the Denver Broncos, or the Las Vegas Raiders is kind of the dark horse to land one of these guys.
Yeah.
They're going to be in one of those 6 spots, unless something crazy happens, which I'm always rooting for.
Mhm.
So we're going to break down, Jacob, kind of, did you make a ranking of these 1 through 6, or at least roughly have an idea in your head?
As far as like which I'd prefer for quarterbacks?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
for what you want.
Yeah.
Again, any of those 3 guys, Drake Maye, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, go agnostic of what the guy is.
Yep.
Which spots do you like the most?
Yeah, so we'll throw Chicago in there too, but I think Minnesota's the clear 1. Chicago would be at 2. Washington kind of feels like 3, but the Raiders are a close 4. And then it's, well, good luck if you go to one of the other 3. There's no good weapons on the outside for the Giants, the Patriots, or the Broncos right now. You have Sutton given problems with contract stuff in Denver. They just traded Jerry Jeudy, so they don't have anything else. The Patriots receiver room has been a crapshoot for a while, and the Giants receiving room is kind of led by Jalen Hyatt, which is not good. So they're all in the bottom tier as far as where you want your quarterback to go, but they're all getting somebody. So we will see.
Yeah, I mean, we just got news as well that Darren Waller, it sounds like he's retiring. Apparently, he's just not answering the phone.
Well, he's going through a divorce currently. So
oh, really? I didn't even know that.
Yep.
That dude's going through a lot. Maybe he comes back and finds football. Honestly, that's my guess there. Maybe he just wants to get off the Giants. That's also very likely. Speaking of news, I meant to bring this news up at the top, but it kind of falls into this. The Commanders are right now kind of dating around their quarterback options, and I think the Commanders are a decent option, like you said at the top.
Good receivers.
I have them ranked Vikings, Raiders too. Flip-flopped them with the Washington for you.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams more than anything.
Yeah.
But totally get with you. And then I have Broncos, Giants, Patriots. But you said you hadn't heard yet about what the Commanders were up to in their quarterback scouting process.
Yeah, I need to hear this.
So there's each year, each team gets top 30 visits in a very limited amount of top 30 visits where you get to go and talk with and have their time for like a whole day. And just sit down with that prospect. And you only get to do this with a certain amount of prospects. So usually teams will take them to dinner, put them in front of a whiteboard, make them watch film, and just grind them for like 12 hours on just stuff and getting to know them as people. Well, the Washington Commanders and how they decided that they're going to figure out which quarterback's going to be their guy because no one knows who they're taking it to. Adam Peters, their GM, locked lips. So he invited all 4 of them to Topgolf to play Topgolf. And I believe there are other prospects in other bays too, but at least the quarterbacks were all there.
Yeah.
And he just paid for them to play Topgolf together and just interact. And meanwhile, we had the GM and just everyone watching scouting, just watching their interactions. And that's how they're trying to gain info on who to take. It feels like draft day. Jacob, are you supportive of this Topgolf strategy?
I actually don't hate it. I think you're going to find a better culture fit that way. And I think a locker room guy, someone with a good head on their shoulders, is a good idea. And a decent golf swing is a pretty good indication of character. So
do you play
there's
golf
worse
well,
ways. What's that?
Do you play golf well? Is that what you're trying to say?
I do. And bad swings scare me. Those people scare me. So I don't blame them. I don't think it's a terrible strategy.
Then you
Something
think
new.
Yeah, you would think I'm an awful person then. I'm inconsistent at best at Topgolf. But Jacob, who's your bet? Who do you think came out the best there?
Who of what?
On golfing at Topgolf? Who do you think had the best swing? JJ,
I feel like
Drake Maye.
Drake Maye probably has a good golf swing.
He was talking himself
From
up. He came
Carolina
out of
guy.
there saying he was the best.
Yeah.
Well, why that reigns into Jaden Daniels and why we don't know where he's going to go, his agent came out super upset that is how they spent his time. So that one tells you
So he had a bad golf swing.
Yeah, he's terrible. He's absolutely awful. And it also gets me a little concerned that, maybe he doesn't, yuck it up with the boys very well. Because otherwise, like Drake Maye is the charisma guy. JJ would have been so weird there. JJ McCarthy is like Russell Wilson level weird. So I don't believe he was probably great there. Drake Maye, probably that was his wheelhouse. At least he was talking it up.
Yep.
But yeah, if a guy goes to the Vikings, that's easily like behind Caleb. That's probably got to be the guy we're going to have to push up there.
Agreed.
As much as I don't like Jaden Daniels over Drake Maye, if Jaden Daniels goes to the Vikings, I'm in. If JJ McCarthy goes to the Vikings, I'm in. Sounds like you agree there, Jacob?
Yep, I agree. And it looks like Daniels right now is still the favorite. He's a slight favorite over May to go to, but it's a toss-up.
Yeah, and right now is the time of the year where we hear just lots of dumb crap. What were you saying last year about Will Levis earlier?
Last year, Will Levis was the favorite to be the number 2 overall pick in last year's draft, and he went in round 2. So you never know. He was everyone remembers seeing him at the draft party on day 1 with his girlfriend around his arm, and they were just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting, and the name never got called.
And then she broke up with him.
And she did.
So I think that's why a lot of guys this year aren't going to the draft. But yeah, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So some of this stuff may be fake news. We don't know. This is where we're assessing. Daniels is still the guy to go to. So Daniels or whoever goes to Washington, you're still feeling good about them, Jacob?
Yeah, I feel good about that landing spot.
So then moving down the list, I think we both still feel good about the Raiders. Like that is a low-key good spot. Rumor is that the Gruden family gave permission to the GM to make a trade up. And there is heavy links from Antonio Pierce to Jaden Daniels as he coached him or recruited him to Arizona State back in college. And that's where Jaden Daniels got his start. There's also big rumors that the Raiders want to court Michael Penix Jr., who we'll talk about here in a second. So the Raiders, might be less talked about. They are a real landing spot for a quarterback.
If they can move up and get Jaden Daniels, I love that. But I think if they can't make a trade, they're fine sitting where they're at and getting Penix and waiting for him to just fall to them, because I think he'll be available at their pick.
Weirdly enough, I just listened to Diana Rossini on the Athletic podcast, given some last minute info just that she's received at least. Yeah. And right now she's saying it sounds like at 4 and 5, the Cardinals and Chargers might stay put. So it might be the Giants who might be a trade back partner, because apparently they are looking at quarterback, don't love quarterback. So watch Giants Titans.
If May doesn't go 2, I've seen the Giants are interested in moving up to 3. So they are thinking about trading up because they really like Drake Maye, but we'll have to see how the draft kind of falls. I think we see a lot of action on draft day because we've seen nothing so far.
Yeah, there's just so many big prospects up there. And well, you mentioned Patriots. Okay, so we have top 3. Vikings, Raiders, Commanders. Quarterback goes there. We're happy enough. Vikings were thrilled. Like Vikings tier of its own. We're thrilled.
Yeah.
Broncos, Giants, Patriots. The sad soul who likely one person to land on one of those 3 teams. What's your reaction if it goes to one of those teams? So
I guess silver lining on the Broncos because Sutton is still currently there, and I feel like that team is a little bit more of a passing team than the other 2. They have a little bit better of weapons around them, but it's not great. It's not great on any way you slice it.
Jacob, let's make a fake scenario. Who's your 3rd quarterback out of Daniels, May, and J.J. McCarthy? Who do you like the least out of those 3?
It feels unfair to say McCarthy, but for fantasy purposes, it's J.J. McCarthy.
Absolutely, and I'm in full agreement there. All right, so Vikings out of the window. We've both agreed whoever goes there, instant favorite.
Yeah.
Let's say that Drake Maye goes to, or I think you're a Jaden Daniels guy. Jaden Daniels goes to the Raiders. Wherever they end up trading up. But JJ McCarthy goes to the Raiders. I have this backwards. JJ McCarthy goes to the Raiders, and we have the sad soul Jaden Daniels going to the Patriots at 3. Does that flip them for you? Is that enough?
It would be very difficult for me to have that decision on draft day because I still love the rushing upside that Jaden Daniels provides. But, and you know what? Silver lining on the Patriots, he'd have to run a lot more than he would in other places. So Maybe it's still him, but it would be hard to ignore McCarthy and those weapons around him for the Raiders.
He'd have to run for his darn life. I
Yeah.
think May and Daniels, whichever spot I like more, I'm going to kind of go that way. I think with McCarthy, he's in this tier because he's going to go so high, but
Yeah.
he needs a good landing spot, I think is kind of what we're settling in on.
Agreed.
Well, kind of moving on past those guys, that's kind of our initial feelings there. So if a guy goes Commanders, Vikings, Raiders, good, Broncos, Giants, no, Patriots, no. This next tier of guys, Michael Penix and Bo Nix. You were saying that there's action now towards there being a fifth quarterback going in the first round?
Yeah, so the line currently for Bo Nix and Michael Penix is set at 32.5 for both of them. And the under actually for 4.5 quarterbacks being drafted in the first round is not the favorite. So they're thinking one of those two guys slips out of the first round. Is how
But
the
one
odds
goes in.
Yep, is how the odds currently have it sitting. And they have it right at 32.5. So even if someone backdoors in the pick 32 or the first pick in the second round, then Vegas kind of escapes it there. But bookmakers know a lot more than we do. So I like to look at those and get a sense of where things are going to head. But money is on Penix right now to be the one that goes in the first round and for Bo Nix to kind of be the odd man out and Will Levis his way into the second round.
All right, Jacob, I just got a call from Roger Goodell. And the script writers in Goodell's office said, "Hey, Jacob, the league is absolutely rigged. You've known this forever. And we're going to let you pick which of these two quarterbacks goes to the Vikings. One of them, either Michael Penix or Bo Nix. They actually are at pick 23 that the Vikings have. At second pick, they have it. They're going there. All right. One of those guys goes to the Vikings. Are you going to take one of those guys now over Daniels, May, or McCarthy, just agnostic of landing spot? Assume they went in. One of them probably went in a gross spot, but none of them went to the Vikings.
Yeah, I think if it's like May to the Patriots and it's Penix on the Vikings, I would lean towards Penix. I trust his arm. He's a very accurate quarterback. He can throw the ball anywhere on the field. With Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, he's going to be able to do what he did in Washington. I would be stoked with that landing spot if I was a dynasty manager of anyone on that team. So that one wouldn't bother me at all, and I would definitely bump him ahead of some other guys in the draft.
Yeah, I have to agree. The Viking spot is so good. And the rumor is that the Vikings, a couple reasons they might not have moved up by now. Again, Diana Rossini was saying that the Cardinals, just like they did last year, are just their way they trade is how I've been preaching people to trade in Dynasty. Don't trade till like last moment. And that's when your value goes all the way up. So apparently the Cardinals have offers on the table that they are holding until draft day. They said, send them in. We will not take one until we're on the clock.
Yeah.
As to, drive up prices. So like the Vikings have been out and saying like, hey, nothing's guaranteed is basically what Kwesi, their GM, has been saying. Nothing's guaranteed. There's a chance they do not trade up. There's a chance they already have the deal in place. We don't know. So there's a decent chance that we don't know what's going to happen with it. The Vikings could land any sort of places. So it's real that they end up with either Penix Nix at the 11 or the 23rd spot. Otherwise, in Broncos Raiders, Penix has been really heavily linked to the Raiders.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Penix on the Raiders specifically? I haven't heard Bo Nix many other places other than the Broncos. So
that's kind of where I'm at too. And quickly on Nix, the other landing spots that have been mentioned for him, aside from the Broncos, are actually the Vikings, and then the Rams is kind of like a dark horse if he does fall to round 2, because they gotta kind of look at life after Stafford here sooner rather than later. So maybe that's a decent spot for him to kind of grow and develop. It would absolutely tank his fantasy value. But for Penix and the Raiders, that'd be a great landing spot. And it would still, the way I'm kind of looking at those two teams, like I wouldn't knock him much more than I would if he was on the Vikings there with, like you said, with Adams and even Jacoby Myers that people overlook far too often. And with a pretty bad running game, they're going to need to pass a lot. And in that division, they're going to need to pass a lot. And with a bad defense, they're going to need to pass a lot. So would be a pretty good landing spot for Penix there.
All right. So Jaden Daniels, Drake Maye, JJ McCarthy just went to the Pats, one of them. Would you take Michael Penix to the Raiders over one of those guys?
Over all but Daniels.
One of the top three. Okay.
I would still favor the rushing upside of Jaden Daniels over Penix, almost regardless of situation.
Gotcha. And I think that's kind of a fair line to set.
Yeah.
The rushing's going to be good no matter where he goes. It might be a
Yeah.
limited time because, he's going to get all sorts of beat up in
Yeah.
New England. It probably won't be a long, like,
Might
we've
be an
seen
RG3 type flame. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But it's going to be way even more explosive because Jaden Daniels doesn't just like get hit hard. He gets hit real, like he jumps into a 300-pound
Yeah.
defensive lineman. It gets piled in the ground. It'll be explosive. Like
Yeah.
he's going to get launched into the Earth's crust and be stuck there. So he's actually just going to end up living in the Earth's crust. He's not going to get hurt. He's just going to be relocated. That's going to be the issue there with Daniels. Yeah, but you kind of mentioned it. Still some of the thunder I was going to mention here, but there's talks like you've mentioned that if Penix, basically we don't know where Penix and Nix are going.
Right.
They could go round 3 for all we know, because some people view them as backups, and you're not gonna trade a lot for Gardner Minshew level play, all right, or Taylor Heineke. So they really could go anywhere. They could go high in the first, mid first, whatever. Two teams that stand out as potentially looking future quarterback are one you mentioned, the Rams. Another you mentioned, the Seattle Seahawks, with Geno Smith in place, Matthew Stafford in place, respectfully. We can go ahead and assume that the Seahawks and Rams are not trading up to get one of the top guys. Like that'd be I hope they do.
You can mention the Jets as well as a kind of a team in that same scenario, especially since they just traded their backup away.
Oh yeah, they absolutely should. And some more news I probably could have gotten to the top. Yeah, apparently. That is why Steve and Jesse aren't here, because they didn't want to have to take the new Bronco jersey and new Bronco backup quarterback talks.
Yeah.
They're hiding from it.
Oh, man.
But yeah, anyway, Jets should do it. They won't.
Yeah.
They're too short term. But Rams and Seahawks, if Penix or Nix goes to one of those spots that are unequivocally awesome, like Penix getting reunited with Ryan Grubb as offensive coordinator at Washington in Seattle would be phenomenal with those weapons. Undoubtedly, McVay, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, awesome.
Yeah.
How would you treat that situation? Because they're gonna sit for a chunk of time if they go to those. How would you treat that if it ended up happening?
Yeah, if they went to Seattle, I think their odds of starting a game or more in that first year are much higher than it would be if they were on the Rams. Stafford's not losing his job to any of those guys as long as he's healthy. Geno Smith, on the other hand, is a little bit of a different scenario, and they just brought in, who else did they just bring in?
Sam Howell.
Sam Howell. So those two guys could be unseated by a talented rookie, especially if they're doing well in camp, and especially if Seattle starts the season slow and like looks terrible. They only have a couple wins through the first 6, 7, 8 weeks. There's a chance that they throw a rookie in there, but I don't see the Rams doing that. But if you've got a taxi squad on your dynasty roster, those guys would be perfect there, and they will be draft day values because no one will want to look at them because they'll just be backups for X amount of time. But their path to starting is not crazy. And like you said, the talent on both of those teams, especially at receiver, is massive.
Yeah. That Jordan Love track. People got off of Jordan Love because I want to say it's a unique thing. Packers have done it all the time of stashing a quarterback for a while.
Unique to most teams.
Yeah, but it happens all the time that people take a guy. If it goes in the first round, it'll be obvious that they're going to let him play. But it happens all the time that these guys go on day 2, they sit, and we're like, oh, we're waiting for them. And then they just never pop up because, they weren't that good. And second, third round pick in the NFL really isn't actually that high for a QB. So the value doesn't hold. If a guy goes in the first, I might take him in the first round if he goes to one of these teams, specifically Penix to the Seahawks. I would like you said, he might end up playing a lot of the year.
Yeah.
Geno Smith's contract, he technically has 2 years left, 24 and 25 to play on it. He is super cuttable in 2025. And they would not be, he's not getting paid enough to force him to play this year even. If Penix goes to the Seahawks, I think that's the best situation, arguably just as good as the Vikings.
Yeah.
I'd take Penix in the first round, and I'm not a Penix guy. If he ends up on the Seahawks, maybe the Rams, just because whoever McVay gets his hands on is going to succeed. Like, there's zero doubt about it. But
I agree.
2 dark horse landing spots that could be seriously insane that no one's thinking about. But you heard about them here. They're going to happen now. We predicted it, and you heard it here first. And if it doesn't happen, Steven told us to say that. So we'll move on up of quarterbacks there, unless you have any last-second thoughts or teams that you think could low-key take a quarterback.
The Saints might be one other team worth mentioning. I don't think. Yeah. It's a little ew, but the receiving group's not bad. You got your guy Chris Olave there, so it could be worse.
You're right. You're absolutely correct. It could be worse. Love me some Chris Olave. But yeah, for the most part, it kind of feels like those teams that we've mentioned,
Yeah.
probably the team. Maybe the Falcons take a future guy, but that seems too
Yeah.
responsible.
The
for
Dolphins had a
them.
little bit of steam, but I think they're locked into Tua.
No. That's a good one. That's a good one. You know I am anti-Tua. I heard it take, I think it was Benjamin Solak. I think he mentioned like if the Dolphins take like Bo Nix, they're all of a sudden like a playoff winner. Like they're gonna do much
Oh
better.
my goodness.
I do not like Tua. I think Bo Nix is a more athletic, bigger armed Tua. I think that'd be phenomenal. I actually really don't like Penix there. I think Penix would be bad there. I
Because
don't
he would
think
just look exactly like Tua.
Yeah,
left-handed and
exactly.
all.
Left-handed and limited. If he gets a quarterback that can spray and pray, that's another good one. Also, the Cowboys. Actually, I'll just drop that one too.
Yeah.
Apparently, the Cowboys just cannot get a contract signed with Dak or anyone, so they have a crud ton of money on the line. They haven't been
do.
spending money lately. The Cowboys are another low-key one. Think like Spencer Rattler or something late. I don't know.
Yeah, something smaller than one of these top guys.
Trey Lance for the future.
Yeah.
Moving on to running backs. This is like the true mystery box.
Yep.
We have a handful of teams. Jacob, start prepping some of the ones you want to specifically mention. I've got some good and bad landing spots. We're gonna start with the three big main guys and like what it could mean if they get a good or bad landing spot. Blake Corum, Trey Benson, Jonathan Brooks, pretty unanimously across the board. A lot of people's top three. Some people throw Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd. Jacob would throw Audric Estime up there into that top three, maybe. But these are the guys who have serious upside in the right spot. And Jacob, tell the people, what is the only right spot in this draft?
The only right spot right now is the Dallas Cowboys. That is the spot that I think any of these rookies, I don't care if they're a fifth-round rookie, they could start week 1 on the Dallas Cowboys with the way their running back room looks right now.
Yeah, right now the only running backs they have are Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn, and there's one other guy who's
Royce Freeman, and I know that because I had him stashed on my dynasty roster, and it was only because he was a backup in LA. But still, I have him.
Yeah, that's the running back room. So they're begging for touches. They have not replaced anyone. They're talking about Zeke coming back. How high would you take any one of these running backs in a rookie mock draft if they land on the Cowboys?
In a super flex league, I would take them in the back of the first round. I think you could justify them anywhere between picks 10 and 12. So that right at the end of the first round, granted, but you could definitely justify, especially if you've got a need at running back and you don't trust any of the receivers that are left on the board.
Absolutely. Go look at dynasty rookie mock drafts anywhere. Nobody's taking a running back in the first round. The receivers are good. The quarterbacks are good. There's a tight end that's generational potentially. No one's taking a running back. But if one, I should say whichever one lands on the Cowboys, dear God, Jerry, the one thing we know you're good for is taking a running back and paying them too much and doing too much with a running back. So please take a running back, make our day. If Jonathan Brooks goes there, I am ready to get silly and take him ahead of basically, like, he might be my 108.
He'd be the one I'd be scared to take him in the first round, though, because you don't know if he's going to start week 1. That's the only worry with him. But if you can be patient, if you've got a roster that's got some good running backs already, and you can afford to miss a couple weeks of a first-round pick, then it's fine. But you might have to be a little bit more patient with Brooks than the other ones.
Absolutely. And hopefully, if you're obviously people trade picks all the time. Our league is very guilty of that. Typically, if it's your pick and you're drafting with like the 109, usually your team can wait a little bit because, man, playoff season, that is exactly when you want to be holding that card of, Jonathan Brooks, 20 carries, 20 touches, 20, whatever in the Cowboys offense.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. That is going to be game breaking. That's a dude who we're going to have to go update our underdog rankings. Jacob, for Steven after the draft and scramble to do that. I don't see why you would. He might be an RB1 if he goes to the Cowboys and we keep hearing good news. But I'll brainwash myself. Top 12 running back, Jonathan Brooks on the Cowboys by the time August comes around.
The Cowboys would be a lot of good signs. So they're the medical staff that does work for the Dallas Cowboys. They've been doing the work on Jonathan Brooks and his rehab, and they know more about his injury than anyone else. So if they draft him, it gives me a lot of hope that everything is fine and good to go and he'll be ready to play this year. if it's a different team, it would definitely scare me off Brooks a little bit.
For sure. And it's going to be capital. Like if he goes in the
Yeah.
second round, but he goes a couple picks later, like I'm fine with it still. If he goes early
Yeah.
third, I'm fine with it still. I'll get out ahead of this. I don't be scared, people at home, if you see running backs fall. Like third round is gonna feel like a lot like second round this year. There's second round talents in this draft. The thing is, GMs are very much out there saying to everyone who will listen that a lot of these guys, like 8 of them, or a lot of them in the same tier.
Yeah.
So that's just gonna make everyone wait
Yep.
for wait in line. Like I don't need to start taking the run now. Like I'll do it later. The Cowboys are the only one desperate enough to really need one. So if running backs go later, I don't think it's a terrible sign. But let's talk some other landing spots for these guys. Blake again, Corum, Benson, Brooks. I'm going to still be excited for them if they go to one of the following teams.
Yeah.
The Cardinals. James Conner is old, beat up all the time. Eventually, it's more like a future thing. Again,
Yeah.
no one's as good as the Cowboys. That's the Vikings of this section.
Mm-hmm.
Texans. I think you have some disagreement there, but generally, I think old running back.
Yeah.
They're going to share touches. They run the ball a lot. They run the ball first down all the time. So I think that's going to be a good offense. Raiders, possibly the most opportunity. It's probably second. I don't have these in a particular order.
Yeah.
Zamir White could be out of town easily. They have no commitment to him. Giants, Devin Singletary. I know I tried this last year with the young running back, and Devin Singletary unseated him, but that's really the only guy there in New York.
Yep.
Chargers, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and Greg Roman running the ball a million times. That's honestly another very nice landing spot, although not as good as the Cowboys. Panthers, I'm not a Chuba Hubbard guy. That's all you need to know, albeit terrible, terrible offense. Vikings.
Miles Sanders still there.
That he doesn't exist anymore. No, he is gone in my brain. Vikings, wait for Aaron Jones to retire. Then you have a great guy and a great offense.
Yep.
Bengals, Zach Moss and Chase Brown. Chase Brown is a 5th rounder. I'm not scared. Jacob, which one of those do you like the most next to the Cowboys? Or is there one I didn't mention that you think you would like second to the Cowboys?
I don't think there's one that you didn't mention that I like more than any of the other ones. I would say the Chargers give me the most hope because I don't have any trust in a running back post Achilles or in Gus Edwards being around for all that long. And with the way that offense is going to be ran, I think the Chargers provide the most upside to these running backs aside from the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think I should probably come around to the Chargers. I think that would probably be my 2. The Raiders, although they're also going to run the ball a ton, I just don't think it'll be as good or quite as run heavy. Like the Raiders are going to run the football.
Their offense isn't going to be as good. I think the Chargers score more points over the course of a year than the Raiders do. So
absolutely,
just that logic. You want the running back on that team.
It's just Greg Roman. Looking back, I pulled up his statistics. How they rank in rushing attempts in a Greg Roman offense since 2022 going back to 2011. They've ranked 7th, 3rd, 1st, 2nd, 9th, 3rd, 7th, 3rd in ranks of rushing attempts. So a Greg Roman offense runs the ball, and that was 2014 and 2011, where they were top 10 every single year. That was Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman. Been there, seen there, done that with a good quarterback now. They are going to run the dang rock. So I think it's a great choice for you there. I think the Raiders, like I said, are pretty clear, probably 3rd. So it probably goes Cowboys, Chargers, Raiders.
Yeah.
What after that? Do you think there's a sneaky good spot here that a running back could go to?
Sneaky good spot, I think, would be the Bengals because Chase Brown is not an every down back. And I know we didn't trust Zach Moss last year and he proved everybody wrong, but long term, I would still think the Bengals, maybe not year 1, but year 2 for sure would be a good spot. A little sneaky spot there.
I think that's actually a great call because you're going to get in your mind so much this offseason, and get ready, get your ear blockers on for the stupid Chase Brown hype.
Oh yeah.
Like he's athletic. He's great. Guys, he went in the 5th round, and that was a good running back class last year. A lot of running backs went before him. He was nobody's first choice. And so Chase Brown's going to get hype, and they're going to be, oh, Zach Moss was good last year. Guys, Zach Moss, I promise you, watch every snap of every Colts game. the holes were bigger for Zach Moss than they were for Jonathan Taylor, and I cannot explain it other than Zach Moss did not just have some random. He did not just randomly become good.
No,
They're not paying him like he's good either in Cincinnati.
right.
I think that's an awesome spot that could actually be really good this year, Jacob. That now that you mentioned that, like even it won't be like Trey Benson, Jonathan Brooks, or Corum probably going there.
Yeah.
Just because they have enough depth. But a later guy like Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd, Braylon Allen, or your boy Estime, I really think they could bust out of that backfield with Joe Mixon gone now and be something special.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a great call by you. Is there another landing spot that you want to get excited for?
Excited for no, but as another sneaky one is kind of the Saints. They've been mocked to some running backs. Kamara won't be here after this year. Kendre Miller hasn't exactly been exciting so far. Jamal Williams is there right now, but won't be next year. So it will look terrible this season, but next year that could be a certain rookie's like entire running back room all to himself. So it might be a 1 year and wait situation, but the Saints are kind of sneaky for them.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm a big Kendre Miller guy. I'm taking bets on him, but that's just my opinion. And I'm not the GM there. If they take another running back, it's something we have to consider. Kamara is really old. He could go down at any point.
Yeah.
And then it opens the door long term. Think about it, friends. Each year there's been a running back for the last couple of years, at least, that I can remember off the top of my head. A running back was on a team and we're like, oh, no, he's there. He was drafted there. He's their guy. So we can ignore that. They have depth. Like Breece Hall went to the Jets, and Breece Hall is a different level running back. But there are people who are telling me, Steven, and you on Instagram for months that because Michael Carter was good for the Jets, even though he was a later round pick, that there's no way that he can have the lion's share of the backfield. Mm-hmm. And last year, Kyron Williams, he wasn't a rookie, but a guy we heard that they liked.
There were Cam Akers truthers still last year.
And Cam Akers got a lot of touches in an empty backfield. So he's the guy. We have to get rid of these pretenses unless a dude is paid, has huge capital, or like Cam Akers had a massive red flag. If there are red flags, running backs, dive into those red flag backfields, pick the cheap one and see what pops out on the other end. Mm-hmm. Ambiguous backfields you have to attack. And there's been a lot of success in that the last couple of years.
I agree. That makes the Cardinals even more worth mentioning with James Conner being the guy there, because after Conner, it is bleak.
Michael Carter.
Pretty sure, it's Michael Carter. So it's ugly after James Conner, and he could definitely go down at any point in the season, like any running back could, and that would be a very good spot for any running back.
And I really liked what the Cardinals offensive coordinator is doing in Arizona and the desert. Jacob, what landing spots are you not so excited for?
I am not so excited for a couple that have been popping up frequently, and one of those is the Eagles, which, I mean, Saquon's there, and Jalen Hurts is the running back too there. So you're buried on the depth chart, and opportunities are going to be very minimal. You're going to be open for an injury if you've got a running back on that team that's not Saquon Barkley. So I don't like being in that position. It's the same thing with the Packers that have Josh Jacobs now, and they just re-signed A.J. Dillon. Maybe they get like a speed guy like late in the draft that can kind of be exciting on some plays, kind of like a Keaton Mitchell type guy. If I could see them having some success there, but wouldn't be stoked. And then the Rams are kind of one that would really hurt my soul if they drafted another running back, but I could see them, how good they are in the 5th round. And even if they brought in like a bruising back, which this draft is full of, to kind of complement Kyron Williams, it wouldn't be terrible. I still think Kyron would be a top 5 fantasy running back this year, but it's definitely one of those spots that like they could use some depth in the running back room. Don't be surprised if they take one on day 3, but it would hurt my heart a little bit.
Yeah, I think those are some good spots. The Bills, I'm seeing some teams. It makes a lot of sense for the Bills to take a running back, pair with James Cook. A lot, kind of the opposite of what you're saying with like the Packers. We need some thunder to the lightning, and boy, did the Bills try to get some thunder. They had Latavius Murray.
Yeah,
I mean that dude is 35. He should be the one vacationing right now in Disney and not in the NFL. Yeah. Latavius Murray's getting handoffs, so I think Audric Estime, like one of these bigger.
Braylon Allen. Like they brought in a big dude that it would be kind of worrisome for Cook, because he's already got minimal touchdown upside with Josh Allen running in everything from the 1, 2, 3 yard line. So
absolutely,
a big body running back taking away more of those is not promising.
And I don't even think it's that detrimental for Cook. They were trying to They were getting rid of his touches anyway.
Yeah.
It's just like I don't like. It makes sense that they're going to take one. It's like the Seahawks last year. Like did like it's a good offense. It's a good situation, but like it made sense that they took one. They needed depth. They needed a pair. They like as much as we don't want it to happen, we felt good as fantasy players last year that there was one running back there. This is the NFL.
Yep.
They needed complementary pieces, and Charbonnet complemented Kenneth Walker well, and Braylon Allen complements James Cook pretty well.
Yeah.
Rattle off some. We already went through some of yours. Rattle more of mine off. The Bears, I think, would make a lot of sense to bring in another running back.
It's a deep room, but it's kind of ugly and not like promising. So,
and we have a new OC there too. So you see these guys a lot of times go and get their dude. We see the Browns, Commanders, Dolphins, Falcons, Jags, Jets, Rams, Titans kind of round out my list. There's just a lot of spots.
Could see the Jags. They should not have any faith in Tank Bigsby, so they definitely need a backup running back. I don't know if they'll go after one, but they need to pull the cord there. That's not going to work out.
No, and we have we have Doug Peterson and the Jags coming out again saying we should take touches away from Travis Etienne. Please don't for fantasy. Just don't leave us alone, Dad. Go away. Don't be responsible, Doug. Don't be the responsible father here. Let him have fun. He's young. He can handle it. But they'll probably take a guy because they had JaMychal Hasty playing snaps because Tank Bigsby was terrible. Definitely the worst tank out of last year's draft.
Was so bad. Ravens have been rumored as well. There's a couple mocks that have had running backs going to the Ravens. So that would be weird and not good, but just a spot to look out for.
If you've been watching film or been gross like us and found a running back you like, low key you later, like Tyrone Tracy, if they just land on a spot like the Ravens, you have to give up. Running backs in the draft, you have to either be ready to get excited for a dude you had no plans to get excited for, or completely get off of a guy that you were absolutely in on.
Yep, that'll be a lot of people with Jalen Wright and Isaac Gurindo. I'm gonna
Gurindo,
name, and Will Shipley, and Audric Estime. I have to mention him too. Those are all guys that might go somewhere to be a backup running back, and nothing more.
Yeah. So. San Francisco takes a running back every year, but that dude's not going to be the RB1, unfortunately. Exactly. Moving on to wide receiver talk. This gets more interesting like the quarterbacks, where it's at the top, there are three dudes who we know are going top 10, and there's a few spots that we can be pretty sure they're going to go. And then after that, there's a lot of guys who we don't know. Could they go in the first? Could they go in the second? So we're going to talk through Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze, and which one of those possible spots. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that those guys could realistically land on.
Yeah.
Then that might even be expanded. Crazy stuff could happen, but this is what's being mocked.
Right.
And then we'll go and talk about the back half of the first, or guys who might go in the second, just generally good spots, guys who need receivers.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and mention the spots that I think are most likely for those top three guys, Harrison, Neighbors, Odunze, to go to. Jacob, let me know if I'm missing any off this list. The Arizona Cardinals, really good chance they go and take Marvin Harrison right off the rip.
Would love that. Yep.
Los Angeles Chargers, right after them. New York Giants, they're at 6. Yep. The Patriots might not take a quarterback and just take the best receiver prospect since Jamar Chase at 3. Chicago, they're not taking him with the first round pick, the first overall pick. Don't worry about that. But they have pick 9. For people who don't know, people don't talk about the 9th pick the Bears have. They just talk about 101. They have it. The Tennessee Titans at 7. If they're not taking a lineman, they're taking a wide receiver because their wide receivers are collectively collecting AARP on the weekly. They're old people. DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley combined, 60 years old. They're very much in line to take a wide receiver. Or finally, the Jets at 10, I think have a really good shot at, we've heard trading up to go take one of the Neighbors or Marv and go all in this year, or if Odunze falls to 10, or this might even include Bowers in that group. But
I hope they stay put and just take Brock Bowers, just make it easy on everybody.
I would as well. Is there anyone there that you would add that could land one of these top 3 guys realistically?
In the top of the draft currently, no. That about sums up the list there. There's teams late, like you said, that could move up, but I don't really see anybody moving up
The Jaguars, I think, are the longest shot because they're
Yeah.
irresponsible and would just do something like that.
If you want one of these top 3 guys, you would have to trade up into the top 10. And I don't know if there's teams that are willing to do that for some of these receivers, but we will see.
So based on that group of, like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams, which ones are you which ones are you most excited for? We'll start there. Who do you like the most? Because I think it's really up in the air of who do you like at the very top for any one of these guys?
Yeah, I like the Cardinals the most out of those teams. I like Kyler Murray. I'm a big Kyler Murray fan. He loves a number 1 receiver. He has supported a lot of different number 1 receivers, including Marquise Brown, not last year, but the year before that. He was supporting him like to an insane extent that people were getting hyped about him for Dynasty, and he made him look like DeAndre Hopkins for the first
And
half of the
Marquise
year.
Brown is not that good. He's
No,
not that good.
but Kyler made him look good, and they, more importantly, they will pass the ball a lot in Arizona, which is why I would say the Chargers are second, because while it is Justin Herbert, and while that receiver would definitely be the number 1, they're going to run the ball a lot. So it just limits the upside a little bit for that wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Those are my top 2 spots by like far.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
the offense where I have the Cardinals 1. And I think if like for some reason the Cardinals trade back and like an Odunze lands there, I would still take like Odunze, depending on where Marvin Neighbors land. I might take him now over the other 2. I'm a big Odunze guy as well.
Yeah.
But the Cardinals spot is they're going to throw a decent amount. Like they're not going to throw like the Chargers are going to throw it. And he's the number 1. There is not another great wide receiver option. Obviously, Trey McBride is going to be there. The Chargers have Justin Herbert. And so that's a great option too. So Chargers, Cardinals, you are thrilled. After that, what's like kind of next on your line there? Who are you like kind of excited for, at least before we get to the bad?
Oh, I don't know if I'm kind of excited for any of those next options. So you mentioned the Giants and you mentioned the Patriots. What are some of the other options that are around there?
Chicago,
We have
Tennessee,
Yeah.
and New York.
So in those last 3 spots you mentioned, you would walk into the building as a rookie and be the wide receiver 3 on day 1. And that is just hard to get excited about. Granted, some of those receivers there are older and they could jump into that wide receiver 2 role sooner rather than later, but it's still like you're going to be fighting for targets as a rookie in those spots, whereas Arizona and for the Chargers, like you are walking in there and you're immediately the alpha on that team. So it's hard to get excited about any of those spots. And then the Giants are the Giants. If Daniel Jones is the quarterback, it's not good. But if they move up to draft a quarterback, it's unlikely they're still around there to draft a wide receiver early. But if they get one late, it'd be a little bit more exciting if they were able to get a different quarterback in there that's not named Daniel Jones.
Absolutely. But hey, I'm old enough to remember this one guy who Daniel Jones looked like he was casted to play in a movie. Eli Manning was there in New York, and a rookie wide receiver was unlucky enough to be paired with him. And he was able to, be pretty good in New York and OBJ. I think the Giants are actually a decent landing spot. I trust Dable to just force feed.
They'd be the number 1.
Yeah. And I really don't hate that. I think Drew Lock is competent enough to throw at the wide receiver 1 irresponsibly,
exactly,
which is good for fantasy. Jameis Winston style that. So I think the Giants are people knock it. It's I'd prefer the Cardinals or Chargers. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
it's not a terrible spot. Like I'm not going to be upset and dramatically drop. Like
we'll have to find. Yeah, we'll have to find ways to get excited about the Giants for sure. They might see 15 targets a game. It might be 15 ugly targets and only 6 of them are catchable, but
still 6 catches.
That's still 6 catches. And man, a bunch of yards. And if it's an elite receiver, one of these top 3 guys, it wouldn't be the worst thing. Right?
I'm going to lead the charge on the negative landing spots, Jacob. If the Patriots stay at 3 and they take a receiver or they trade back to 9, they don't get the quarterback, basically, is what I'm saying.
If they don't get a quarterback, it's toast.
And they take a wide receiver, like Jacoby Brissett, I guess actually isn't terrible.
He's
not
supporting
terrible. Good receiver play, but there's no we last saw Jacoby tearing it up for your Browns, like actually playing well.
Supporting Cooper.
This Pat's offense isn't like that though. Like there's no offensive line for him to hide behind. There's no other receivers to take some attention away. Like Pop Douglas, no, thank you. Please,
Parker.
Yeah, exactly. Whoever goes to the Pats, Jacob, I think is going to be the most lost of souls. Who are you most scared for one of these top guys to go to?
I'm scared for Marv to go to the Patriots.
Yeah.
If they decide to stay put, or if they only move back a couple picks and somehow Marvin Harrison is still there and they get to take him, that is a scary proposition. And yeah, whichever one of Neighbors or Odunze goes to Arizona or to the Chargers, they will be ranked over him, which is crazy to think about. But that's a doomsday scenario. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
I'm a little afraid forever goes to Chicago. DJ Moore is going to be there
Yeah.
for at least the next couple of years, and he's really good. It kind of turns if Caleb Williams pans out, and let's say it's Joe Burrow, which is a high level outcome for him.
Right.
It kind of turns into like the T. Higgins situation. We'll see who becomes the Jamar Chase versus a T. Higgins in Chicago. But I just really think DJ Moore, it's going to be hard. That's another high level outcome, is to be DJ Moore. So it's like, to be better than that, it's kind of scary. Tennessee, if Will Levis hits, is actually low key phenomenal. If Callahan can help the Will Levis become an actual guy, which I don't think he can be, then all of a sudden you're the only receiver there in like 2 years. So I think that's a low key okay spot,
That's
but
fair.
terrifying in the immediate future. And it's with the Jets. Jets would be fine. Like, I'm not going to get excited. I'm not going to be scared. It's like meh.
Yeah. Hopkins is a free agent in 2025, so it would just be Ridley in Tennessee and Treylon Burks. I guess we have to mention him too. He was a first-round pickup after all, so
I'm shoving him out of my mind.
Yeah.
Treylon and I have gone through too much. I've traded too much for that man.
Exactly. Remember
Treylon-
that on draft week when you're doing your rookie drafts, that there is a Treylon Burks sitting there waiting for you to draft him, and it's going to happen. There's going to be busts in this draft. We don't know who yet, but
100%. And speaking of those guys who are going, not like these top three dudes,
Yeah.
we'd be shocked if they don't hit.
Right.
The next group of guys, let me pull up my little dynasty rankings I have here. Like, we're talking like Brian Thomas, Adonai Mitchell, Lad McConkey, Keon Coleman, Troy Franklin, Xavier Worthy, Malachi Corley. One of these guys.
Yeah.
This is kind of our next tier of dudes, and the landing spots for these guys are just absolutely limitless.
Yeah.
Obviously, the top spots are the Chiefs, likely have an opening.
Yeah.
Rashee Rice, we're hearing at least a multi-game suspension. I think he'll still be there, but regardless, the Chiefs, great landing spot. Bills, great landing spot. Cowboys, I think, is a really good landing spot.
Agreed.
One of those guys go there. We're pretty excited. Jacob, do you have another like really high level, you're thrilled if they take a guy landing spot?
Oh man. Thrilled's going to sound gross if I say I'm thrilled about the Steelers getting a wide receiver, but I think they have a clear vacancy of targets with Deontay Johnson leaving, that if it's a good receiver that goes there, and if we see one of Russ or Fields step up and actually be a good quarterback, that could be a sneaky spot for a
You're not
wide receiver to go.
You're not a Calvin Austin truther?
No, I'm not a Calvin Austin truther. I am not. I'm also not a Gabe Davis truther, so the Jaguars is another little sneaky spot that I like. Trevor Lawrence, I think that could be a good spot for a wide receiver, especially one of these later guys. But really, looking at my list here, there are 7 spots that I think a receiver won't go. So everywhere else in the league is wide open. So like, I don't see the Browns, the Buccaneers, the Commanders, Packers, Seahawks, Texans, Vikings drafting a receiver.
At least not highly.
Yeah, at least not highly. Like the Vikings, if there's some insane trade where like Justin Jefferson is gone, then yes, obviously they might draft a receiver. But those are the only teams that I feel like these early guys are kind of off limits for. Other than that, it's wide open for anyone else in the league to take a receiver.
I really like the Jaguars. I think that'd be an awesome one. Get Trevor Lawrence, a guy of the future. I'm sorry, Jesse. I know you're listening wherever you are. Zay Jones is not that dude. You're going to have to get him off your dynasty team.
Yeah.
The Jaguars desperately need a dominant wide receiver.
They need an X. They need a dominant X receiver. Yeah.
They need a guy who isn't going to have to hide in the slot the entire time and will be consistent.
Yeah.
So I really think the Jaguars are an underrated spot.
49ers are going to be the best spot. When they trade Brandon Ayuk on Thursday, that's going to be the best spot for a receiver.
Big if Brandon Ayuk is out here on Instagram posting crap that says it goes down in like 48 hours or whatever it was, meaning draft day. Like, it is, I love what is happening there. Incredible content. Brandon Ayuk hats off to you. Every other disgruntled wide receiver take notes. Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
Great job, Stephon. I want the media to know first when you're
Yep.
upset. Don't tell the team first. Tell
Yeah.
us first.
Go and follow your team on Instagram. You don't need to follow them anymore.
Do it. Make our lives more interesting. Other landing spots I thought would be fine. The Patriots aren't great,
Yeah.
but if they're taking one later, this is like they get one in the second because they took Drake Maye in the first. Now all of a sudden I'm fine with it. So the Patriots, huge void of targets. They're fine if a quarterback goes there first.
Right.
Bengals are a nice little landing spot. This is
nice one.
assuming T. Higgins is on the way out or gets traded.
Even if he's there this year on the franchise tag, I don't think there's any chance he's there next year. So, especially if they draft a wide receiver, they would definitely let him walk or trade him during the season.
Lad McConkey, you know, let him sit a year, kind of like be wide receiver 3. Woo.
Yeah.
Love me some Joe Burrow and some Lad McConkey. Yeah, those are kind of the teams I'm most excited for. I am really not wanting the guy who goes to the Panthers. I've seen the show where a guy goes in to compete with Deontay Johnson for targets, and Deontay Johnson's really good at getting wide open. I think he pairs really good with Bryce Young. I do not want to deal with the second receiver in a bad offense. Panthers.
They have another guy there they like to feed a lot of targets to as well. So
the old man Adam Thielen.
Old man Thielen is still there, still kicking, and will still get targets. So
gosh, you think like him and DeAndre Hopkins just like sit back and join an old wide receiver club where they're like, man, dude, we're still getting paid like tens of millions of dollars to run just like these little routes and not separate at all.
Right.
Like, do you think they cherish that a lot? I bet they do. I'm not excited for the guy who goes to the Bears unless it's one of the top level guys who are going to command targets.
Exactly.
Like, I love AD Mitchell. I'm not going to like AD Mitchell unless he goes to like a higher level, like a room with less target competition. Same with Brian Thomas. Yeah. Same with Brian Thomas level guy. Like even that, I want to see them go somewhere where they can be groomed to be the one. DJ Moore's just too young for that.
Broncos are one of those spots. That could be a good sneaky one. Sutton would be gone next year. If they get one of these quarterbacks that we think has some promise and potential, Broncos would be a place where they could immediately go and be the number one.
Still holding my Marvin Mims stock for the Broncos. I really don't like whoever goes to the Colts. I really think the Colts take a receiver.
I think they do. They're either taking a receiver or a tight end. I've seen some trade up to get Brock Bowers moves. So
if they take Brock Bowers, though, that's a different story. I, as a Colts fan, look at the Richardson jersey. I cannot tell you how many stupid times I had to watch stupid Kylan. I love you, Kylan Granson. You're great. Kylan Granson or Drew Mallory or Jelani, or not Jelani Woods. Big Mo Ali Cox.
Big Mo.
Just leak out into the off the line of scrimmage and catch a route that they have no business catching or doing anything with.
Those are true tight ends. They're not tight ends like Brock Bowers is.
There's so much space in front of them at all times. And if Brock Bowers had that space, he houses at least 5 random 50-yard touchdowns.
Yep.
If Brock Bowers do not get it flipped, wide receiver, bad on the Colts. Tight end on the Colts, great opportunity. Just kind of rattle it off. Commanders really could take a guy, new offensive coordinator. You have to look for it. Already good receivers there. Do not like whoever goes to the Commanders. Ravens most likely will want a guy. OBJ is on the way out. Bateman's not shown anything. Really hate that.
Zay Flowers off the field issues, which have been cleared up apparently, but still.
Yeah, but it would make sense. Like, hey, if he has character issues, let's get some sort of backup 3rd, 4th round. Hate whoever goes there. Really don't like whoever goes to the Saints. Chris Olave is a target hog, and he's having issues getting a ton of targets.
Yeah.
And he's really good. Derek Carr sucks.
Yeah.
And I don't like the Steelers. I don't want the guy who goes there and catches passes from Justin Fields as the second target.
Yeah.
I've seen the show with Arthur Smith before. I'm not a fan of it. It's not the worst. There are certainly worse.
That's fair. I just don't
like it.
I don't think some of these receivers would be the second option there, was my point. I think they could usurp George Pickens and be the number one on that team. I don't think that is far-fetched at all.
Love me some George Pickens. I won't stand for the slander. Jacob, is there any other landing spots for wide receivers that you want to mention, either in the positive or the negative?
There's 2 that would be short-term negative, long-term positive that would kind of be cool, but they have 2 old guys or soon-to-retire guys on their team, and that's the Rams with Cooper Kupp.
Great one.
Doesn't have a lot of time left. And then, I mean, you'd still be the number 2 behind Puka, but that team throws the ball a lot. I don't think that's going to change when Stafford leaves. And then the Dolphins. Tyreek Hill said he's only going to play for a few more years, and that was last year. So
I think he's got 2 left
this year and next. Yep, 2 left. Jalen Waddle has not been paid yet, I believe.
He
Has
just
been
got
paid?
his 5th-year option picked up, but that's not an extension. That's
Not
actually
an
meaningful.
extension.
Like, we should
Yeah.
see an extension.
Yeah, especially if he has another injury-riddled season. Like, that dude, I swear every time I watch him play, he is walking off the field limping at some point during the game. So they might not love him long-term, and he might be more of a 2 than he is a 1. So you'd have to be patient with both of those teams, obviously, because Kupp and Hill aren't going anywhere anytime soon. They're still very good receivers. But long-term, sneaky.
Jacob, I do not have this on the show sheet. We're at the hour mark. I want to drop one last thing to you. All right.
Yeah.
Because we're pre-draft. I like predictions.
I love it.
I like guessing games. Start looking through your rankings, your receivers, your running backs, your quarterbacks. Who's a guy who you think people are going to be shocked when they go higher in the draft than people think? So I specifically have in mind some like wide receivers who are in that like 3rd, 4th round tier, who I'm like, dude, they just probably will end up going high in the 2nd round. We'll have to get excited about them. So you look through those. I'll start mentioning some. Jermaine Burton is a guy that has been growing hype. Me and Jesse talked ad nauseum about him one pod. I don't think you were on that one. I think it was just me and our favorite Hart fellow gushing about Jermaine Burton. We love this guy. I really think he has the talent, the pedigree. He was a massive recruit. 2 huge programs led them.
Yeah.
It was just off-field issues. He just ticked off the coaches. If there's somebody out there who says, I can fix him. Like I have the toxic ex, the girl who's really, really hot, who's absolutely insane. That's Jermaine Burton.
Yeah.
And there's someone out, the Chiefs, like they totally think they can fix Jermaine Burton. Like that is such a thing that could happen. 2nd round. And now all of a sudden we are going out of our minds. Like Bills say, Sean McDermott says he can fix them. I really think that's a great one.
That is Malik Washington for me. If he jumps into that early 3rd or 2nd round, even he's one of those guys that creeps in there. That would be.
We haven't talked much about Malik Washington. Explain his profile. Who is he?
He's my Puka Nacua this year, so that's all you need to know.
Famously, Jacob called Puka Nacua, like not to the degree of Puka Nacua, but Jacob was all in on Puka. So tell us about Malik Washington, wide receiver out of Virginia.
He was very good in a bad Virginia offense, and there's just a lot of upside. His metrics bode well. There were good collegiate numbers. I believe the breakout score was high as well, but he's just a sneaky little sleeper guy that there's no guarantee he goes 3rd, 2nd round even, but maybe he's that 5th round guy that goes kind of like Puka did. He's that sleeper in the draft.
Sorry, to speak more on him. He's small. He's limited. So like Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, is a really interesting comp to him.
Yeah.
It's a guy who, because of physical attributes, had to be limited in the NFL. And I think if a team just like Puka was not a good route runner when he got to the NFL and he became one because of limiting factors. Teams were like, we got to drop him back.
Right.
And somebody found a fit for him. Amon-Ra in Detroit. The Rams have a very specific role for him in LA, and it worked out well. I think somebody could find that for Malik. But who are you saying next, Jacob?
There's not a receiver, but there's a guy that's been gaining some steam to be the first in his position to be taken, and that's Marshawn Lloyd at running back. So that would be interesting if he was the first running back off the board. You would think that would mean 2nd round if he was the first. So he would obviously have to gain a lot of steam moving into rookie drafts if he was the first running back taken.
My running back who I'm excited about, and now people are catching up to it. I'm hearing bigger names talk about him. Will Shipley. He is a stud recruit out of Clemson.
He catches the ball.
Catches the football. He is one. There are a few running backs who come out of any class who can actually run routes. And the first time we talked running backs, I said, this is one of those guys. Him and Bucky Irving can actually run an NFL route like a receiver. This guy, Christian McCaffrey comps is because he's white. No, like actually, not like, I'm sorry, take it back. Not Christian McCaffrey in the sense he can be that, but Christian McCaffrey in the sense that he is what he does, just not as good because Christian McCaffrey's insane.
Yeah.
Run actual routes, big head of steam, had a huge season his sophomore year. I don't know why people aren't higher on him. I really like me some Will Shipley. I think he could be a big diamond in the rough.
It's very similar to how I kind of feel about Audric Estime, where like the collegiate production is just insane.
This was the guy you were supposed to talk about, Jacob, when I first mentioned it. That's your boy.
It's just being overlooked, and it's because of a bad 40 time. And if you want to overlook a guy because of that, I think that's just kind of short-minded. But That's another guy. Audric Estime caught every single target he was thrown in his career. It's a fun little stat. And he's known as a big bruising guy, so it's not a bad little feat to have. But
Absolutely not.
he's good. He's really good. First in yards per carry for running backs with 200 plus attempts. I love Audric Estime, but we'll see. He'll go late. He'll be a sleeper I'll get to talk about in the coming weeks after he's drafted. It'll be fun.
Yeah. And just wanted to give you that opportunity to get those voices out there because the draft's coming up and we can't look. If we are calling like, oh, I knew this guy was going to go high after the draft, we needed our receipts somewhere. That way people can see them and give us some credit whenever we get there. But Jacob, glad we could do this. Even without the other guys here, we absolutely killed it. Our voices getting to talk the entire time.
No,
it doesn't
throat hurts a little bit. It's crazy.
Gotta give some emotion today. I drive that out of people. I try my best at least. Jacob talking a lot. We got something here, folks. But yeah, that'll do it for the show. Thanks for tuning in. Again, please like, subscribe, follow, show us some love wherever you can. We really do appreciate it. I get cocky. I say we deserve it. We appreciate everything we get. Share with your friends. Tell them about it if you enjoy it. Leave a comment, negative or positive, in the chat. Whatever love we can get, we appreciate it. Please follow the main page at Fantasy Guides. Buy a rookie cheat sheet, or actually get that for free. Buy yourself a rookie draft guide, though. Get all the information you would possibly need there. And be ready for some draft because we're going to get hot into it next week and talk about all of the stuff coming out of it, all the impacts, and actually where people landed. Jacob, say goodbye to the friends at home.
Goodbye, friends at home. Keep an eye out on Instagram. There's good posts coming into this week.